focus as promised to India's sugar sector then. Earlier this week, the government issued a notification relaxing all restrictions on using sugarcane juice, syrup and all types of molasses for ethanol production. The notification also makes it clear that sugar diversion to ethanol will be reviewed periodically to ensure enough availability of sugar in the domestic market. Remember, ISMA estimates earlier suggested that sugar production is expected to surge by nearly 18% next year thanks to above normal monsoon. But what does this really mean for the sugar sector? And could we see the government hike ethanol prices in the near term? To discuss this, we are now joined by Mr. Deepak Ballani, Director General at ISMA. Mr. Ballani, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now. So big positive move that came in from the government a few days ago for the sugar sector, and all of these sugar stocks were surging on the back of this news piece. How do you read this information? And I believe the next ask of the industry from the government will be to seek increase in ethanol prices as well. What kind of expectation are you penciling in from the government?
Thank you for having me in your channel. See, first of all, it's a good news that the government has allowed unrestricted diversion of sugar to ethanol. As you just mentioned, we are heading for a bumper crop next year. So in 25-26, we have estimated a gross sugar production of around 35 million ton. And our domestic consumption is almost, this year it would be around 28 million ton, but next year going forward, it won't be beyond 28.5. So we will have too much of surplus sugar. So it's very important that we at least divert 5 million tons of sugar to ethanol. But for having that, we must have the price correction, which has not been done for last 3 years. It is extremely important for the government now that they have already allowed the unrestricted diversion to also look into the price correction, because our FRP has gone up by almost 17%. There is also the inflationary burden on the conversion cost. So even if you take the raw material cost, it must revise the price of cane juice ethanol and B-heavy methanol so that the mills are viable and we are able to pay to the farmers on time next year. Because as I said, we will have a very good crop, and balancing the crop by ethanol diversion, the price increase is extremely important and a very important element in the entire sugar ecosystem.
I understand that point. And Mr. Ballani, last time when we spoke to you, you did tell us that you will be revising your output estimates in the month of September. Are you still expecting 18% production hike as far as sugar is concerned? Would you like to revise that estimate for us?
See, we are in a process of assessing the crop again. We have already taken our satellite images. On 11th of September, we have our committee meeting where we are going to present our outlook, revised outlook. And on 11th of September, we'll decide whether the revision, there is a need for the revision. But what looks like, looking at the monsoon and the kind rain gods, we are looking at an upward bias from 35 million tons.
Okay, and since you're expecting that production is likely to inch higher, and now that the government has also relaxed restrictions on ethanol production, are you expecting the government to allow exports as well on the higher side in the next sugar season?
Absolutely, yes. As I just mentioned, since we will have a surplus sugar 35 million ton, and even if we take a domestic consumption of around 28.5, we still will have around 2 million tons of sugar to be exported after diverting around 5 million to ethanol. And in order to have stable sugar prices in the country and make sure that the domestic prices don't go down below the viability levels, it is extremely important that we export 2 million tons of sugar outside the country. And for that, we have requested the government to allow at least 1 million in the month of October before we start the crushing season. And subsequently in December, January, another million could be permitted.
Okay, and Mr. Ballani, what is the inventory situation in the domestic market as of now, since we are expecting that production of sugar is likely to inch higher? Could retail prices then in the domestic market decline?
See, we already have seen in last 1 week that the domestic prices have gone down. We will be closing the season on 30th September with almost 5.2 million tons. And I just mentioned that we are going to have a very good production next year. So that we might see downward pressure on the sugar prices. But that is where it is very important for us to maintain a healthy stock, that the ethanol diversion and exports are allowed, and with the ethanol price correction and at least 2 million of exports, so that our domestic market, at least ex mill prices, are stable and at least above the cost of production.
Understood. So that's as far as exports and ethanol prices are concerned. Mr. Ballani, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here on ET Now and helping us understand what the outlook is for India's sugar sector. Thanks so much for joining us.